Hello, welcome to South2North from Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm Ridi Tlhabi. Today we explore the world of political comedy. Is our political life enriched or undermined by humour that makes fun of powerful people? When it comes to satire, does anything go, or are there lines beyond which it simply isn't funny anymore? Tonight we'll hear the personal experiences of a man who has been sued by a president, cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, also known as Zapiro. We also have comedy pioneer Kagiso Lediga and stand-up comic Nik Rabinowitz. And from New York, we have American-born Palestinian comic Dean Obeidallah to talk about his efforts to counter Islamophobia in America through humor. Gentlemen, welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
Great.
Let's start with you, Dean. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you are a half Sicilian Catholic and half Palestinian Muslim. Was comedy the only career choice you had?
I used to be actually a lawyer, and then I became a comedian because I really hated being a lawyer. It's a horrible career decision. It pays well, but it's horrible. And I've really enjoyed making this transition, doing political comedy, and dealing with issues about being Muslim in America. It's really been so much better than if I would have remained as a lawyer, I can assure you.
Well, your film, The Muslims Are Coming, won an award at its debut at the Austin Film Festival. Congratulations. Let's take a look at this clip.
And give America this big Muslim hug. Come on, America, bring it in, yeah.
People don't notice minorities usually until either one of them has a hit song or does something horrible.
Well, how do you feel about 9/11?
Today is the day. A live Muslim is here to answer your questions.
Why doesn't the Muslim community be more proactive in denouncing terrorism?
Why do I have to prove to you that I'm not dangerous?
If you're constantly trying to prove that you're the model minority, it's exhausting.
I want to ask you, the film that we've just seen has something that you invented, and it's Hug a Muslim. Of course, I want to laugh at that, but I suspect you were making a point about that. What point were you making?
The idea really was to reach out by doing what we did, all free shows. We went to the Deep South, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and the West. And we wanted to meet people. That's why the shows were for free. And we literally wanted to hug people because we wanted to build a connection between people of different faiths and Muslims in America. And while, you know, in the intro you said I'm half Catholic, I was raised with both faiths, but I am Muslim. And, you know, a lot of the work I do in comedy to try to break down stereotypes. I think most Americans are very open-minded, frankly, and comedy is a great vehicle to reach out to people. They're laughing, they're feeling good about you, and then, you know, you can slip in a little message and break down some stereotypes.
You've also said that the mass media conditions people to be suspicious of others with a different accent. Have you experienced that personally?
I have not. When people see me, they think just typical white American guy, frankly. My name is the way where it's Obeidallah, has the word Allah in it. I get hate mail sometimes. I don't think other comedians are getting hate mail because of their faith or their background. So I have to deal with that. You know, you hear disparaging remarks. You know, I had a cousin who's Arab-American, born here, beaten up after 9/11 simply because of his faith. So, you know, you deal with those issues. And you can either cry about them, you can make serious speeches, or do what we do and try to use comedy.
All right, now you've also spoken out quite strongly, I gather, against stereotyping. I want us to take a look at this clip.
Known for his iconic beard, he is protected by 30 female guards, who he maintains are virgins. Thrust into power at age 7, he may just be the most dangerous man in the entire world.
All right, let's get right to it. Do you have nuclear weapons?
What was the question?
Do you have nuclear weapons?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Are you developing nuclear weapons?
No, I literally can't hear you.
I'm going to another question.
Oh, I can hear you now.
All right, Dean, what don't you like about that?
Well, you know, I'm not offended by it. I'm a comedian. I offend people nightly, frankly. It's not that. My objection with the dictator was that you have all these people playing Arabs and no one who is Arab starring or writing the film. If you're going to make fun of us, we should be a part of it, because first we'll make it better. It'll be less cliche stereotypes. It'll be more insightful, and I think a better movie.
All right, Jonathan, I want to bring you into this. You are a leading cartoonist here in South Africa. You offend powerful people, but you also play to stereotypes sometimes with exaggerating people's features, perhaps. What would you say to Dean about stereotype in this role?
You know, I understand what he was saying. And, I mean, when you say play to stereotypes, the kind of stereotypes that you see in cartooning which are really offensive are the kind of the old stuff that used to happen in one of my favorite cartoons, Tintin. And the black face with big white eyes and big red lips and all of that. Now, some cartoonists in South Africa actually use those stereotypes ironically. And what's always difficult is to see when people are doing this with irony and when they're not. But stereotypes, I mean, I think that the stereotypes that actually belittle people in a way that, say you pick up on the old stereotypes of Jews with huge noses or Muslims drawn in a certain way that is very, very sort of banal and exaggerated just by virtue of their race, not their actual features that you're trying to caricature. Those are stereotypes. I actually don't do that. I avoid that very carefully.
You were nodding so vigorously when Dean was talking about stereotypes.
I was also working on a similar project about an African dictator and so on. And what happens is that, like, Hollywood essentially says no to those because they need to sell these movies. So if you come in with a whole bunch of Arabs, they can't sell that movie. They can't sell it to the world. And I think that's what happens. But it's a shame because I do think that that movie could have benefited from actual Arab people and Muslim people writing and being involved in it because it would have been so much better.
Here's what my problem is. If you do not cast Arabs or Muslims to play roles, well, we'll never have an Arab who is a star who can open a movie. So we're continually ghettoized to lesser roles or having other people play us. There's so many talented Arab Americans in the States. I run a comedy festival here in New York, and Muslim Americans who could play it and bring the character to life. It'll be better. And finally, we'll have a star from our own community who can open a movie because it's just about making money.
Nik, let me bring you in here. Can we ever have comedy without stereotype?
Yeah, I've been guilty of using stereotypes. And actually, at some point, I decided to actually take the thing more seriously. If I'm going to do an impersonation of a politician, actually make it accurate to that person's a real voice in the same way Jonathan's describing with the physical features.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that keeps coming to mind as everybody's speaking is that we're all kind of being put on the spot around stereotyping, but in a sense, if you're a comedian, if you're a cartoonist, if you're a satirist who has some sort of progressive agenda, you're not trying to be homophobic, you're not trying to be sexist, but you are trying to laugh at a lot of things. You spread your humor widely, and you throw your barbs out all over the place. So you could be accused of individual stereotypes. It's very difficult to avoid any of that in doing satire. But I think where you find comedians or satirists, kind of right-wing people who are throwing all the barbs in one direction to try and belittle groups of people, I think that's the thing. I think we're kind of equal opportunity offenders.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a moment. You offend all people equally. But Kagiso, I want to talk about what you have done for comedy in South Africa. I think you're a pioneer. You've put it on television. Stand-up comedy was not popular where we come from, in the townships, in the black areas and so on. Did you have to fight hard to change the view that black people can't be funny?
Well, I started comedy in Cape Town, which was kind of weird because we were just performing for white people in Cape Town. That was the thing, you know? And it was fun, but you almost had to, every time you went on stage, it was almost like they had never been spoken to like that by a person of another race. Never been
mocked by a black person?
Yeah, it was like always like, hey, yeah, what's going on here? So we had to kind of break that. And it got easier and easier. When we got to Joburg, there was this whole kind of black audience that was waiting.
I want to talk about comedy and what it does for society. It can reflect who we are. It can help us laugh at ourselves. But is it a survival technique, do you think?
I think for a lot of people it is. It's a way of dealing with very difficult issues or think in their own lives or politically outside of their own lives. So I think it can be used for survival. It's almost your own kind of cheap therapy. Instead of paying for a doctor because you can't afford it because you're a comedian, tell strangers about your problems and somehow we all feel better about ourselves. I've done that, I'll be honest with you. I also think it's an agent for change. I think it can be used to raise issues, educate people, inform them, like The Daily Show does with Jon Stewart and other shows here in the States. So to me, I think it's survival, and it can be proactively used as a means to educate, inform, entertain people, and hopefully effectuate some change.
Mm-hmm. Nik, again, you are an equal offender, I think. You make fun of people regardless of their position, their gender, their race. When you do that, are you trying to reduce the stature of the famous person, the powerful person in the eyes of the public? What are you doing?
We want to get to the heart of the matter. And if it involves exposing what we think is the lie there, and that means belittling the president, and some people may see it as belittling the president, that's what we want to do, because we're drawn to that kind of exposing of something.
Mm-hmm. And do you make a conscious effort to offend everyone equally? That's our president laughs this way, Dean. That's our president's laughter here.
Yes, it is. I think I particularly, as a white male with the kind of past that we have, it's important that I do that, because if I'm focusing on one particular group, then it undermines what I'm out to achieve, which is actually to bring people together. And the way to do that is, well, I've got to pick on all of them. It's got to go black Jew, black Jew, black Jew, black Jew.
You call yourself the only Jewish Xhosa-speaking comedian, right?
I think I may be, but I reckon there's probably a few lurking there.
Okay, let's see what you mean by that.
Yes.
Okay. Nik. It's my Xhosa name. Nik. Nik is just my slave name. Nik, that is me. Wanneer isituko sakho sithini? Manyawuza, ndinguRhatep mna Rhatep. Thimkhulu, undlebele zombini phungane mashabatha. Relax, white people. I'm just saying hi.
Okay, Dean, I suspect that there were parts of that you didn't understand. Did you find any of that funny? Does comedy actually travel?
Say yes, Dean. Say yes.
None of that, I understood.
Isn't that the limitation then of comedy, that it can't travel? It's only funny to the people of that particular country or that particular culture?
It's true. It depends on your points of reference. I think with the internet and YouTube, it's brought the world closer together. So when I perform in the Middle East, and I was just in Dubai 2 weeks ago and Kuwait before that, and I traveled across the whole Middle East doing shows, the young people there know all the American TV shows. They know The Daily Show. They know certainly the president, whoever it might be of our country in the United States, and we can make fun of the president there. We can make fun of the president here too. But so I think the world's gotten smaller. But certainly, if your point of reference is very local, the jokes will only work there, and they won't play in other places. But I think the locals love those jokes. When I do jokes about Dubai, in Dubai, the people of Dubai love that I'm doing jokes about them.
Mm. And you, Jonathan, I mean, you've been in a lot of trouble, especially with the president, about your cartoon. There are many cartoons that you've drawn, but the one that stands out for me is the rape of Lady Justice, where our president in South Africa was about to rape Lady Justice. Why did you do that?
I'm a satirist. I regard myself as a visual columnist. That means that sometimes I'll try and be funny, and other times I'll just do something that is really shocking or just makes you think, if I think that that is what is necessary. And in that case, we had somebody who was trying to become president of South Africa, who had a lot of corruption charges hanging over his head, and who was trying to get the corruption charges washed away by threatening and bullying the judiciary with the help of a bunch of his allies. And I portrayed that in the drawing. So the strongest way I could do that was to take the allegorical or symbolic figure of Lady Justice that's known across the world. There she was. The symbolic thing that was happening there was that she looked as if she was about to be raped by this man with the help of these other people. And that was, I believe that said exactly what needed to be said.
Well, people are still talking about it 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line. Dean, can a comedian, a cartoonist, go too far?
I think you can. I really am a great advocate of freedom of expression. And here in the States, I think it really needs to be preserved and defended. So I think a comedian can say anything, but there are consequences sometimes. You may never work again. You may never get on television again. No one might ever come to your shows again. Those are the consequences you have to live with. But I'll defend the person's right to say it. I think sometimes in the States here, people complain, oh my God, he's making fun of this person or that person. It's such fake anger. You know, people know the difference between demonizing and being playful. When we're being playful or making fun of people in power, which I think should be completely unrestricted, you should be able to make fun of anyone in power, elected officials, people seeking power, you should be able to mock those freely. It's when you mock people who are out of power, minority groups and stuff, where I have more sympathy when people complain about it, but still I would defend their right to mock anyone. This is the beauty of freedom of expression. I might not agree with it, but I'll fight for your right and to defend it.
Nick, you've mocked some powerful people in your life, haven't you?
In the last couple of weeks, there's been a suggestion from the head of the Communist Party that we have an insult law to prevent us from insulting the president. It's been on this man's show, and we've discussed it. And we'd rather have a law that prevents the president from doing the stupid things that we get to insult him with. How about that?
Okay, fine. We won't insult certain presidents because you'll end up in jail. But Barack Obama, he's free play.
Oh, Barack Obama, well, we don't have a lot to say about it. In my community, it's different because people will say things like, we wanted the Republicans to win because Barack, we know he's not Muslim, but he sounds Muslim, and that makes us worried. But I know they struggle to find material on Barack. We don't have the same problems. You're welcome to come. There's an abundance for you. We'll give you jokes about our president.
Are you tempted, Dean?
I would love to. I would love to come there. And I think, you know, President Obama, and, you know, it's shocking for me to hear these other comedians having problems or, you know, on TV being prosecuted or fined for making fun of leaders of your country. I mean, that's such a big part of this country here in the United States. And to me, that's outrageous. But of course, I don't live in those countries. And I performed in the Middle East where you cannot make fun of the leaders of the countries you're in. So it makes me really appreciate the freedoms we have here. And America is far from perfect. But freedom of expression is defended by people on the left and the right, frankly. And it's really important. So it's, you know, it's shocking to hear what the people are going through there. The comics on this panel are going through.
Are we exaggerating a bit?
I think we have to put a little corrective here. In a sense, what's happening is there's a sort of a hypothetical kind of anvil that's hanging over our heads that could come down. But at the moment...
They're threatening to silence you, but
because,
at the moment you're free.
First of all, I'm a cartoonist. They're comedians. As a cartoonist, I've now been sued twice by Jacob Zuma before he was president. Mm-hmm. The first was for 15 million rand, which is like $2 million US. And then that amount dropped to 10 million. The second case is the one we were talking about just now that started at 7 million South African rand. It's about $1 million US and has now been dropped. So
the threat is there, but they retreat.
The threat is there, but they retreated. The threat of the insult law, which would cover almost all kinds of satire and comedy and it's there, but it's a bit of bluster. We've actually
say it, but they know they can't do it.
I mean, what I want to put forward here very, very strongly is that we in South Africa have had a fantastic period of being able to say whatever we want and make the jokes that we want to make.
The stuff that you do on radio, the stuff that we do on TV, the stuff that you do in newspapers, it's really like never before has there been this much expression.
Well, Dean, I know we're about to lose you. We're going to lose the satellite connection. So let me say goodbye and thank you very much for joining us on South to North.
Thanks for having me on. It was a real pleasure to chat in with the people from South Africa and you as well.
Thank you very much. All right, Jonathan, it's not just cartoons that you are making. You are also a pioneer of a totally different kind of political comedy here in South Africa, ZA News. Let's take a look.
It appears there is no end in sight for the conflict in the Gaza Strip that has so far claimed 100 Palestinian and 3 Israeli lives.
The Israeli military launched Operation Pillar of Defense in response to ongoing attacks from Hamas launched from Gaza.
Well, Barack, you told me not to bomb Iran, and I didn't.
Oh, look, baby, I really appreciated that you waited until after the elections. But could you just hold back for a while?
But, Barack, it was only a little bit of bombing.
But Gaza? I mean, they don't even have a nuclear bomb.
Exactly.
Jonathan, let's talk about this. I mean, in some countries, when they tried to do something like that, it was banned, right? And you have managed to do it. It was banned or it was either not funny. But it's still not on South African television.
Yeah, this is a real thorn in our side because despite what I was saying earlier about cartoons and stand-up comics, stand-up comedy getting a fantastic platform in South Africa in the last 18 years under democracy. In South Africa, we have not been able to get this on the national broadcaster.
Is that, though?
Well, they certainly don't have the guts. They don't have the political stomach for it. Well, it really could have worked if we had different people around.
You're talking about Nelson Mandela. I heard that he was quite positive about the work you were doing.
Well, I mean, generally, yes. And as a cartoonist, I mean, I've had some incredible interactions with him, specifically on the puppets. The very first puppet that we made was, of course, a Madiba puppet, and because it was in the last year of his presidency that we made this puppet. And I got it into a garden party on the day of the last speech that he made to Parliament as president. And I was walking around with this puppet. I actually got permission eventually to approach him with the puppet.
What? Oh, did he know you were going to do
No,
it?
no.
So
He
you
didn't
surprised
know.
him?
Yeah. I got permission from the Speaker of Parliament. She said, okay, wait till the end of this whole event. But his bodyguards were not hell of impressed with this thing. They hadn't been told about it either. And I sort of pushed my way through these big bodyguards. And this life-size puppet, I had my hand, I was manipulating the face, other hand in one of the puppet's hands.
What did the puppet say?
I stuck out the puppet's hand and Nelson Mandela said, "Oh, I believe I've met this gentleman before." But he said, without knowing that the puppet was coming, he just had that humor. He was not defensive. He was ready for satire. He was ready for criticism. I mean, I had another interaction with him where he actually told me he phoned me once, out of the blue.
Nelson Mandela phoned you?
He phoned me.
You sure it was not Nik Rabinowitz?
That of course.
Shapiro.
Yeah. And I do his voice, and friends of mine do the voices, the comedians who do. So I thought I was waiting for a trick because I was told President's office on the line. Then the voice said, "Hold on for President Mandela," and he said, "Hello, this is President Mandela," and I was flabbergasted, and I had to figure out whether it really was him. And anyway, he really had phoned to say he was sorry he wouldn't be seeing my cartoons in the Cape Argus, the local newspaper, when he was in Cape Town, when Parliament was in session, because they were not going to be published there anymore. They were being published in Joburg and in Johannesburg and republished. And it was the most incredible thing. But I then said to him, I'm amazed that you actually called me yourself. And then, especially because in the 3 years since I've met you, you would have seen the cartoons getting more and more critical of the ANC and of government. And he said, "Oh, but that is your job."
Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. Let's continue reading the cartoons, laughing at ourselves, and making political commentary about the world. Jonathan Shapiro, Kagiso Lediga, and Nik Rabinowitz, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And now, to end our comedy edition, let's take a look at this music video that's gone viral on YouTube. It was created by a bunch of South African students with some Norwegians. It's humor to make a point about charity stereotypes. So here's a song from South2North. Goodbye.
Africa, we need to make a difference in Norway. We need to collect our radiators, ship them over there, and spread some warmth, spread some light, and spread some smiles. Say yes to Radiate.
It's a freezing.